at Virginia Tech. I did my final paper and presentation on organizational development, and so I interviewed Ross Meekum, who is the Director of Organizational Development here at Virginia Tech. I think there's several definitions of organizational development that really fit with what we're trying to do, and this is kind of what I came up with as my own sort of definition of it. A strategic way to continuously monitor and examine the future goals of an organization, the current state of the organization, and what is needed in order for that organization to meet those future goals in a way that allows for healthy growth. So it's kind of a continuous strategic management process. So organizational development at Tech falls under the University Organizational and Professional Development team, which is part of the human resources. As we all know, Tech is one of the biggest universities in the state. They have almost 7,600 faculty and staff and over 260 degree programs that graduates and undergraduates can achieve. So that is a pretty big ship to steer. Everybody kind of has their own directions, but they ultimately need to be heading towards the same continent. So UOPD is broken down into professional development, which is more focused on basically more focused on the individual and their increasing their skills and knowledge and abilities. But what I want to focus on today is the organizational development part, or the OD part, which is what Ross heads up. And he's been in that role for 6 years, which is fantastic because I think the university has kind of undergone a change, and he was able to tell me about that, which was interesting. So the OD part of it, they focus on the divisions, units, and teams, and how to best support those groups as they navigate the challenges that are coming up, so that they can meet the goals that they have ahead of them. From talking to Ross, it sounded like mostly he and his team serve as consultants to managers throughout the university so that they can address the challenges that those managers and teams are having. But they also put on programs to help to advance leadership of those managers that are leading teams. And they also have leadership cohort programs, which are formal programs that we've probably all heard of, the Executive Development Institute and the Management Academy. Lori Baker-Lloyd talked a little bit about those when she came and spoke to us. So how do they know where to focus? Because like I said, it's a pretty big ship that we're driving. In my discussion with Ross, he referred to the people that he's helping as clients a lot. So he kind of sees themselves as a business service that they can provide to these clients. And that's probably their primary focus. So their approach to specific challenges that just kind of fall in their lap, and they help them figure out how to deal with those. But every year, they also send out needs assessment analysis to the HR partners that they have in the units and departments at Virginia Tech. And from that, they specifically ask them, what are your 3 goals for the year? What challenges do you think are coming up? And so when they're tailoring programs for those units, they try to address those specific needs to help them. Another thing that he talked about, which was very, very much part of his role, was to listen to leadership, especially the university president, because that's where it all starts, up here, and it flows down. And they also practice the good practice of soliciting feedback on all of the programs and after they're done helping a unit. I was excited when he said he'd been there 6 years because I was able to ask him, what do you think has changed in the last five years since you've been here, and what do you think is going to happen in the future? And he was happy to answer that question because there had been a big change, and that was that President Sands had come to the university, and that kind of has driven a lot of things. And he put it as anytime there's a disruption, whether it's positive or negative, you have to rethink the pieces of your organization, and this flows down to all employees and organizations underneath that new leadership or disruption, whether it's new leadership or not. So that has really upped the business that UOPD or that organizational development has, and and change their focus from being more of a team building retreat type service that they were providing to teams to being more through thinking through the visions and the structure and the strategic plans that these departments and teams have in order to achieve what Dr. Sands is asking them to do. Like every organization, they have some challenges. When I asked him what his 3 main challenges were, he said probably to align with the rest of the HR department. They do fall under HR, they are housed in HR physically, but they are kind of doing their own little piece. And so, on top of keeping up with everything else that the university is doing, he also needs to be on top of what the rest of HR is doing, what capabilities and resources are available there. The second challenge that he thought was recognizing the context of Virginia Tech and where the university is headed. And that again ties back into listening to leadership, listening to what the goals and the vision is for Virginia Tech. It's such a big ship that you really have to think far ahead in the future and to determine what you're going to do, and that can be a challenge. And then finally, pretty much like every single organization, resources. He would love to have more people. Right now it's really, in the organizational development part, it's really Ross who leads that. He has one other consultant, and he has a graduate assistant. But they overcome that by relying on Lori, who came in and spoke to us, who is the executive director of both the development and the professional training part. She is really the face of their organization. She goes out and meets with leadership, gets their message out there, helps bring back the ideas of what is needed, so that's really helpful. And he also has a network of HR, what are called HR partners, out in the different departments and units that he's working with. And so an example of that would be Professor Beecher. So they will partner with them to help put on the programs that that unit needs. So that's a big help to them in overcoming that. Oh, and he also said it's really helpful to be at the university because they're subject matter experts. So if they have a problem with like a psychology issue or something, they'll go find a psychology professor that's willing and able to help them. And so I thought that was a creative use of resources. My final takeaway from speaking with Ross is that we're very lucky to have UOPD at Virginia Tech. In fact, he actually pointed out to me that even our peer institutions that are just as large as we are, a lot of them do not have an organized UOPD department. And so we're really kind of ahead of the game in that way. And it sounded to me like Ross has a real depth of organizational development knowledge. When he came in, they were doing more team building and things like that. And now they've really focused more on the real strategic management of things. And I think that's fantastic. And Lori, as we heard, has more of a breadth of knowledge. She's worked in lots of different organizations, which she said has really brought a lot to their team. They seem extremely committed to helping align all the units and teams with the president's vision and goals, which to me fits right there with what organizational development is. And they seem to be a small but effective team. I'm certainly no expert on human resources or organizational development, but I was impressed with what he had to say and what they're doing there. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I've got a question.
Okay.
So with President Sands wanting this huge expansion of students, with more students comes more staff.
Right.
Did you guys get to talk about that at all and how they plan on implementing specifically that plan?
We did not talk specifically about that, but after speaking with him about their strategies in general, I would imagine that that is probably on his radar, and he is probably already talking with the departments that would be mostly affected by that and trying to help them determine, I would think maybe about recruiting and what needs these students might be able to help fill in. Yeah, but we didn't talk specifically about that. Any other questions?
What was your biggest impression, other than you being here for the amount of time he has, what was your biggest impression about Ross?
About Ross? That he was very committed and passionate and focused on his role in helping keep everyone focused on the big picture and the vision. Like he talked about how, when we talked about the challenges, one of the things he went a little deeper into was that, you know, you really have to be aware of what's going on in all of the units, because after you go talk to Unit A, you may go talk to Unit B, and they tell you they want to do this. And you know, if you hadn't talked to Unit A and weren't aware of what they were doing, you may just agree to let Unit B do what they're proposing. And that might end up landing the organization as a whole in a spot that you're not really looking to go to.